You had asked me to say something about my family background. I was born in the USA and in what is called a middle-class family. We were not poor, nor were we well off. We were a family that had everything that was necessary in the way of food, clothing, and shelter. But we had to struggle otherwise for other items. That was the days of the Depression, when there was not much money floating around the country, so we had to be very careful about our expenditures. I have two older brothers, two older sisters. All four of them are deceased now. And I have one younger brother who is 6 years my junior. We were a normal family. I had my usual fights with my brother who was 2 years older than myself. And we gradually grew out of those attitudes. But we were a religious family, as I will explain in the next topic, the question of my vocation. My mother was a very religious person. She used to attend 2 masses on Sunday. The first one so that she could receive Holy Communion, and the days when fasting was necessary before receiving Holy Communion. And then you go back for a second Mass to sing in the choir. In our front living room, there was a large picture of the boy Jesus at the age of 12 teaching in the temple. And in the bedroom where my brother, with whom I used to have little quarrels and fights, were sleeping together, there was a little statue of the Holy Family. And we always had grace before and after meals. So it was a religious family. And I would say that my vocation started when I was an altar boy and a choir singer. Altar boy because any number of times I was kneeling in the chapel before the Blessed Sacrament exposed for what we used to call 40 days adoration. And in those days of recollection, I used to think about the priesthood and would it be a nice thing to become a priest. But that at the age of 13, my father died in an accident due to his business work, and I put off the idea of any vocation like going to the diocesan seminary at a young age of 13, and I was awarded a scholarship to the high school run by the Zavarian brothers. And since money was scarce, I accepted the scholarship so that I could finish my education. When I was in high school at the age of about 14 or 15, the Zavarian brother, who was what we call our homeroom teacher and religious teacher, he asked us one day to write him a letter telling him what we had in mind for the future. And I casually mentioned in my letter that I had thoughts of being a priest. And working on that letter of mine, then he advised me to join the vocation club. That was a club that used to listen to talks given by various representatives of congregations about their work. And it was only towards the end of my time in high school that I met the first Jesuit, the rector of the Theologate and the Philosophy, who came to give a talk to that vocation club. And the fact was that I thought that I could make a go in life as a science teacher, especially of chemistry, which I liked very much. And since the Jesuits would open the way both for being a priest as well as for being a teacher, I thought that that would be the best place to go as far as I was concerned. So I applied for admission to the society, and I was accepted and joined the society a long time ago in the year 1941. About coming to India, I would say this, that the Holy See had entrusted the Patna Diocese to the Chicago Province Jesuits way back in 1921, and American Jesuits had been going there from that time. When I was a novice, I used to read the letters of the missionaries that were posted upon the bulletin board, and that fed my curiosity, and it inspired me to see what kind of people were working in India and for what purpose they were working. But I didn't think seriously about going to India until the end of my philosophy days. At the end of my philosophy days, I had already known people who were 1, 2, 3 years ahead of me who had gone over to Patna, and I knew that many of them were my friends, and they were quite happy there. So that, together with my inspiration, St. Francis Xavier, whom I will speak about shortly, impelled me then to volunteer to go to India to work. I had volunteered not only to go to India, but I had volunteered also to get my master's degree in chemistry before going over, because we were all expected to get a master's degree in some subject or other before going to India, so that we would be of more use to the apostolate there. So I came to India to be at the disposal of the mission superior, and the first thing he did was go and study Hindi, he told me. Then, after 5 months of that, I normally would have been sent for 1 full year, but because I was a little bit late in starting theology, I was given only 5 months and then told to go to Pune for my theology. And this is where then I was ordained in 1955, and I would call that the most memorable event of my life. We were only 5 foreign priests in that class of 27 who were ordained at that time. 22 were of Indian origin only. But there was a very inspiring class, and there were inspiring teachers at that time. And to be the icing on the cake, my mother was able to come for the event. And my brother, who was serving with the armed forces in Japan at the time, he came also. So I had the pleasure of having 2 members of my family there for the ordination, which I considered the most memorable event in my life. We were ordained in that the church of St. Francis Xavier right here in the Pune camp. The person I most admire, as I already hinted, it was St. Francis Xavier. That was the name of the school that I was in, and I'd heard about him through the Xaverian brothers who ran the school who taught me all throughout the school. I admired him for his availability. Someone else was supposed to go to India who could not go because he was sick, and Francis showed up willing to obey Ignatius and go to the east. And of course, we know what he did on his travels abroad, all the way over to Japan. I admired him for all the beautiful things that he did. He had his weaknesses as well, but I think they are minimum in comparison with all the great good, the generosity, and the vision that he had. About my philosophy of life, I would say, learn how to live in the present. The future is not yet here, the past is over, so there's no need of worrying about the past or worrying about the future. And this is a point that is especially relevant for senior citizens, because their past is long past, their future is more bright from the spiritual point of view, because they're closer to the beatific vision. But still, you have to live in the present moment, and that becomes very precious, a day by day, half a day by half a day, hour by hour. Children are like that. They all live in the present. So in that sense, we have to be like a little child to learn how to enjoy or put up with some things that are not so pleasant in the present moment. Just bear it, grin and bear it, as they say. What I like most about my Jesuit way of living is companionship. There, as I mentioned earlier, that I felt at home among all my companions in my ordination class, as well as others, but I felt very close to them as the 4 years here at the Nobili and the 1 year in Canal. And all throughout my stay at the Nobili, companionship was something that I treasured very much. My helping others, as well as my receiving help from others in the community. About my work here at JDV, it's an interesting story about how I ended up here. Actually, I thought that I would be teaching in a chemistry in a school in Patna or somewhere where Patna has its schools. But there were 2 people appointed for work in JDV from the Patna diocese. They were appointed to the philosophy staff. One of them received a visa, the second one did not receive a visa, so he could not come. Since I was already in India, here in Nobili, and I had my master's in science, then the JDV officials asked the mission superior in Patna if I could come in place of the one who was not able to come, and that permission was given. So that's how I ended up here at the Nobili College. And what I treasure most about my stay here in teaching at JDV are my contacts with the students. Especially, I was close to them during the little experiments that were performed, both in the chemistry lab, when we had a chemistry lab, as well as when we had a telescope that was operating on the roof of the library. I so much enjoyed taking students to the roof and let them have a good look at the craters of the moon, to check out the 4 moons of Jupiter, the rings of Saturn, and where there was empty skies, if I would focus the telescope on that empty sky, they could see hundreds and hundreds of stars in what seemed to be a blank period or space. The other kind of experiments that brought me into close contact with the students were the experiments with waves of light. If light consists of waves, there are other kinds of waves too. You could get waves in water, you could get waves in strings or in pieces of wire, and it helps to explain light. Once you see water waves increasing to make a bigger wave or coming adversely against each other, and so that the surface of the water is absolutely calm. So such experiments, including how light generates electricity, which a process which is being used today for manufacturing all of these solar equipment, which are so useful. So I had a very nice experiment where when light generated electricity, and when that light beam was interrupted, then the bell would ring to show that how the light can generate electricity. Message to my readers, I would say that persevere. No matter what you get into, be persistent. You've heard this story before, I think, how Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, worked. He wanted to find a filament through which he could pass electricity, which would give light but would not burn up. So he worked on more than 900 different kinds of materials to put in a vacuum bulb to see if it could carry electricity and give light without burning up. And some of his friends were telling him, "Why do you keep going on with these experiments? Haven't you done enough of experiments?" And Thomas Edison said, "Well, as a result of my work, I know 900 things that don't work. So I'm looking for that one thing that works." So he was persistent. And he ultimately succeeded then in finding the tungsten filament that works in the light bulbs. Of course, today we have different kinds of light bulbs, LED bulbs and so on. But at that time, the electric light bulb was a marvelous invention on the part of Thomas Edison. So persistence. So no matter what work we get into, no matter where obedience puts us, be persistent in doing the work that has been given to you, and you will enjoy then success in the final stages.